Hi, this is Sarah. Before we get started, I wanted to share that the Academy Award nominee for Best Original Screenplay, September 5th, is now on digital. It's based on the true events at the 1972 Olympics and the hostage crisis that changed media coverage forever. Starring Peter Sarsgaard, John Magaro, Ben Chaplin, and Leonie Benesch. You can buy or rent September 5th on Fandango at home now. It's rated PG and from Paramount Pictures. Also, if you DM us in our Instagram or hit us up on Blue Sky, or even email us at biopicapodcaststory@gmail.com. All of that info is in the show notes. We have a couple of free codes to watch the movie at home that we can share. So please do hit us up if you're interested in seeing it. This is an amazing story about the media and about a terrible event that took place at the Munich Olympics, which we did cover in our episode on Steve Prefontaine. He, of course, watched it on television. This is about the people who had to cover this news, and it's an incredible story. So please, as I said, definitely hit us up if you're interested in getting a free download code to see the movie. Thanks so much. Now on with the show. Hi, I'm Sarah.
And I'm Rena, and welcome to
Biopic, a podcast story. This is a podcast where we dissect the good, bad, ugly, and absurd of this specific genre of motion picture, the biopic. If you want to learn more about us, our scoring system, and how we choose movies, please check out our special introductory episode. Introduction, who are we and what are we doing?
Sarah, what movie are we doing this week?
This week, we will be talking about 42. And Rena, can you give us the trigger warning?
This movie contains depictions of racism, baseball-oriented violence, threats of further violence, and repeat use of a particularly loathsome antebellum ethnic slur that has 6 letters and starts with the letter N, along with equally repugnant variants on the aforementioned antebellum ethnic slur.
This movie has more N-words than a Quentin Tarantino movie.
Or, yes, this definitely has the most uses of, I am going to do what I did in the Milk episode and make a noise in my throat similar to the noise that the FCC makes when it wants to bleep someone every time that word comes up. So, this movie contains more uses of than any movie we've done so far.
That is loud. And indeed it does.
This movie uses that word more times than The Wolf of Wall Street uses the word fuck.
Fair. Sure. Rena, can you please give us the spoiler warning?
Spoiler warning. We are going to spoil everything, including possibly the major plot points in works of narrative art having nothing to do with this particular movie. Consider yourself warned.
Some of the sources we used include the PBS Ken Burns documentary on Jackie Robinson, The Court-Martial of Jackie Robinson, The Baseball Legends Battle for Civil Rights During World War II by Michael Lee Lanning, Branch Rickey by Jimmy Breslin, and some articles from the New York Times, and also a YouTube recording that Rena found of Jackie Robinson and Branch Rickey chatting with each other.
Sarah, can you please tell us a little bit about Jackie Robinson and the movie 42?
Of course. From our friends at Wikipedia, Jack Roosevelt Robinson, born January 31st, 1919, and died October 24th, 1972, was an American professional baseball player who became the first African-American to play in Major League Baseball in the modern era. Robinson broke the color line when he started at first base for the Brooklyn Dodgers on April 15th, 1947. During his 10-year career with Major League Baseball, he won the inaugural Rookie of the Year award in 1947. He was an all-star for 6 consecutive seasons and won the National League Most Valuable Player award in 1949, the first Black player so honored. and he played in 6 World Series and contributed to the Dodgers' 1955 World Series championship. And he was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1962 in his first year of eligibility. Robinson's character, his use of nonviolence, and his talent challenged the traditional basis of segregation that had marked many other aspects of American life. 42 is a 2013 American sports drama film produced by Howard Baldwin and distributed by Legendary Pictures. It was written and directed by Brian Helgeland and based on Jackie Robinson's life. The title of the film is a reference to Robinson's jersey number, which was universally retired across all Major League Baseball teams in 1997. The cast includes Chadwick Boseman as Robinson, along with Harrison Ford, Nicole Beharie, Christopher Meloni, Andre Howland, Lucas Black, Hamish Linklater, and Ryan Merriman, all in supporting roles. The movie had an estimated budget of $31 to $40 million, and it made $97.5 million.
I would also say shout out to Alan Tudyk, who, welcome back to the show, Alan Tudyk, who was just in our Trumbo episode. He has a brief but very memorable performance.
He says probably 85% of the N-words in this movie.
Yes.
He is so racist in this movie. It's very upsetting.
Especially since I think of him as Wash from Firefly.
Yeah. He always comes off as such a nice guy, and oh boy is he not in this movie.
Well, yeah, he looks like the lost Baldwin brother, but with kinder eyes.
Yeah, not in this movie, though.
No.
And this is the second film in our Black History Month coverage. So
I guess one of the things I noticed about this is how spiffy the uniforms looked back then. Last year, I watched 42 for the first time, and then I watched 61, followed by The Bronx is Burning. And one of the things I noticed was just the gradual degradation of the uniforms over time into total schlumpdom.
yeah,
It was gross.
they looked real bad in the 70s. Everything did, though.
Yeah. So
I did love this, though. I loved it. I don't care about sports. I think we've established pretty well that neither one of us are sports ball people. But this is our third baseball movie. I would say it's my first favorite, although I'm going to always have a soft spot in my heart for Ty Cobb, which is a really weird thing to say.
we hated it. That movie barely skated by getting second opinion.
You know why we didn't hate it totally, though, is because Tommy Lee Jones. It wasn't Ty Cobb's fault that we hated that movie.
I've listened to that one a few times because it's so funny to listen to how mad you get.
I get so mad. I don't know if I'm going to get as mad about this one. There's plenty to be mad about, though. The racism in this movie is like NC-17.
Yeah, they have points where people just go,
like there's children yelling it with their families, like
learning to be racist with like big wide eyes, admiring their daddy.
Like it's wild. I mean, fortunately we fixed all of that in this country, so that's a relief. But at the time, yeah. So we open on World War II coming to an end and sort of like a faux newsreel sort of setup.
Mm-hmm.
And they're talking about how everyone's coming home and baseball players are coming back and how baseball proves democracy, I guess, is the point that it's a labored metaphor.
Oh, sports ball. I struggle to care about you at all because I'm not a real American.
I feel like we belabor the mythology of baseball as America's game a little hard in this country, and it's tiresome. It's just a sport. Then we also find out that Black people have returned after World War II to be segregated again, as they were after World War I, as they always are after do shit like win big wars, leveraging their skills and their sacrifice. We meet Branch Rickey,
played by Harrison Ford, who is unrecognizable in this. And when I watched this the first time, I remember thinking this is some great American character actor melting into a role. I don't know where I've seen him. And then only when I saw the closing credits did I realize, oh, that's Harrison Ford. And if you just want to see Harrison Ford being a character actor and doing an incredible job, because he is not Harrison Ford at all in this.
No, he seems, I'm hesitant to say this because I don't think he's ever been this, but he seems almost like happy to be acting. It feels like Harrison Ford was maybe proud to do this.
He's still gorgeous when they drag him out as Han Solo again, but it's like he's so happy to not be considered for being handsome in this.
He's always kind of playing Harrison Ford.
Except here, he's doing something that I never thought he had in him or looked for.
He's just always kind of been like transcendently a star.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he's quite good in this in a very different way than we're used to seeing him. You know who else could have played him is Stephen Root.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of Stephen Root lately.
Okay,
but would you ever have thought you'd like line Harrison Ford up and Stephen Root for the same role?
No.
And
I love them both the same for very different reasons.
Branch Rickey was the general manager of the Brooklyn Dodgers, and I read a bit of Jimmy Breslin's biography of him in prep for this, and Branch Rickey had been planning slowly for a long time to desegregate baseball. One of the things that he did was that he got together with New York Governor Thomas Dewey, who we mostly know now as the guy in the Dewey defeats Truman photo op, to pass an anti-discrimination law so that he could do this. And when he was interviewed for the job of managing the Brooklyn Dodgers, he said that it was a thing he wanted to do. Branch Rickey was a deeply religious man. He was someone who believed in fair play, and he was someone who, for how we look at that generation, wonder of wonders, was not a racist and had been moving the pieces into place for this for a long time.
Yeah, I respect that Branch Rickey is also practical about it too, where he recognizes like that not only is there a need for progress and for us to like let go of this nonsense, but also he's very capitalist about it, which I respect in that I think that that's what moves people at the end of the day. And I think that by putting that aspect of it forward, even if that wasn't his motivation, was really smart.
You're never going to win people over by appealing to ideals, first and foremost. And Major League Sports is a business.
Yep. Happy Black History Month, everyone. We live in the worst timeline.
Yeah, but God, I love seeing someone say that diversity is good for business as opposed to the go woke, go broke.
Branch Rickey would be ostracized from 2025 for being like a DEI monster.
Vince Lombardi would be ostracized because he had a gay brother and he went out of his way to be nice to players that he knew were gay.
Oh my God, all these monsters. Do the sports people know? Do people in Ohio know about this shit?
Football has completely forgotten that Vince Lombardi was ahead of his time on this every time they give out the trophy with his name on it. Yeah. Anyway.
So like everyone's like Newport Folk Festival level losing their minds over this, going, please, Mr. Rickey, are you out of your mind? And he's like, yeah, no, we're doing this.
He has a conversation that I know must be many conversations that happened over many months, if not years, rolled into one thing for exposition's sake to bring us to a point immediately, which I am fine with. I think I've gotten a lot less judgmental about little changes in terms of being exact with fact and conversation. And when you're going back to source material, Jackie Robinson wrote two memoirs, one in 1948 and one in 1972, where they change quite a bit in that in the first one, he does not go into resentments against white people. In the later one, he actually talks about resentments against racism, much, much more than in the one that came out in 1948.
They fully like put him out there with a sort of, he's out there taking all the blows for progress. He took a lot of crap to be the person who was pioneering this. You feel that in Chadwick Boseman's performance, because Chadwick Boseman is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also really well written into this movie. We first meet Jackie Robinson as he is playing ball, and then he's on a bus that pulls up to a gas station, and there's a chinless cracker running it, and it's our first of many opportunities to see someone be a racist asshole. And he's not going to let Chadwick Boseman use the bathroom because he's Black and we're in the South. And bigots and their bathrooms, that's all I'm saying.
This is actually something that would happen when Jackie Robinson was traveling in Negro League baseball, is that if they wouldn't let him use the bathroom, he'd say, like, let's get our gas somewhere else. And when you're missing out on 99 gallons of gas, that's
a lot of money.
That's something. So one of the things that I noted here was I had just watched the Ken Burns documentary on Jackie Robinson. Chadwick Boseman really gets the smile down right. You thought he looked a lot like Jackie Robinson. I thought it was yet another case of U 2.0 because Chadwick Boseman just had a leaner, prettier face than Jackie Robinson. He does a good job holding his face like Jackie Robinson, and he gets this, like, Jackie Robinson has this smile that's kind of a half smile that blooms slowly with this little glint of wickedness around the corners of the mouth. But one thing they don't do is Chadwick Boseman is speaking in his what sounds like his natural voice to me here. And when you listen to recordings of Jackie Robinson speaking, he does not sound at all like this. There's about a 3-minute clip of Jackie Robinson and Branch Rickey speaking together, where Jackie Robinson had a high-pitched voice with sort of the geographically blank sort of Hollywood newscaster accent. He did not sound at all like what you would expect him to speak like, to the point where we agreed that you, more so than I, felt that for Chadwick Boseman to have attempted Jackie Robinson's voice would have been a distraction.
Mm-hmm. I think that it would have been weird to hear Chadwick Boseman speaking that way.
He was an extraordinary actor, so I'm sure that he could have, but you described the voice as sounding like Eddie Murphy imitating a white person.
Yeah, like when he would pretend, when he went undercover as a white man on SNL. I'm glad they just didn't do it because it would have been distracting. It didn't take anything away from the performance for me.
And I don't want to criticize Jackie Robinson.
No, I don't think you are. It didn't take away the essence of the character for me. It's not like he sang. You know, he wasn't a performer. His voice wasn't something that was distinctive about him. The way he picked up a baseball bat was distinctive. The way he played the game, the way that he had that sort of like that same sort of like school of kayfabe that Ty Cobb had of like being a performer on the field. All of that's there. I don't think that it matters either way.
Yeah, I briefly looked in the biographies to find out at some point, as a media thing, did Jackie Robinson have like elocution lessons to like try to just to iron out any...
I'm sure he did. One of the things that this movie does well is like it talks about the capitalism, but it also makes it clear there's like a sort of cynicism built into the fact that he is the person who has to break down these barriers. And because of that, he has to play better. He has to be a better person. He has to turn the other cheek. He has to never get violent. Like he has to be a role model of a level that is a standard held to him that is held to no one else.
One thing they don't go into here when he's talking to Branch Rickey is that Branch Rickey's preference was that his first black ball player be married already so that they would not have to deal with any stories about their Black baseball player dating white women.
He's canny about it, and it's a bummer. So this is a weird intersplice because we see Jackie saying like they're going to take their business elsewhere, and Chinless Cracker is like, okay, fine, you can use the bathroom. And then we cut to watching this conversation taking place with T.R. Knight, Harrison Ford, and character actor Toby Huss. And then Jackie comes out of the bathroom and Toby Huss is there at the bus stop at the gas station, which I was like, wow, he was in that bathroom for a while in the world of this film.
I think they're implying that the conversation in this office, that is probably an amalgamation of many conversations taking place over many months, if not years, happened a few months earlier, and Toby Huss just happens to appear there. And again, it's truncation in the interests of storytelling. And after some of this shit we've had to sit through, I'm getting gentler in my judgments on this stuff.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. They bring Jackie to Harrison Ford's office, and he offers what sounds like a lot of money, which is a $3,500 signing bonus and $600 a month, which in 1945 money is like $1 trillion.
Do you want me to look up what that actually is?
No, that's okay. It's a lot. Branch Rickey is telling Jackie that he's going to have to manage his temper, if he has one, and deal with tons of racism, be held to that higher standard that everyone who's white is not. And he says, like, you can't meet your enemy on his own low ground.
In the spirit of when they go low, we go high. Maybe that actually worked back then.
He's not talking about outcomes. He's talking about day to day. You can't go low. Everyone's going to be watching you, and they're going to be holding you to a higher standard, and they're going to be looking at you as the exemplar of what's going to enable us to fully integrate this sport. And I'm so glad that's changed so much in the last 80 years. But he decides to do it, and he calls his girlfriend at the time, and he proposes to her over the phone.
I think we should cut him some slack for this because they had been dating and had been engaged and broken it off and gotten back together for a very long while. And I guess the IRL of it all was that they did have to speed it up, but they managed to have a big church wedding anyway.
Yeah, it's fine. They get married in Pasadena, and then they are trying to get to Pensacola. And the South's going to be the South. The stewardess sees Mrs. Robinson use the whites-only bathroom and bounces them from the plane.
I was looking at her thinking, I hope this woman burns in hell. I don't care if her mother loved her or if her children loved her. I just hope every rotten thing ever happens to her if she did not eventually come to repent this behavior.
You know that if that's a real person, which I'm assuming that it mostly is, they did shit like that all the time. So the South is going to be the South, and we meet Andre Holland, who is a journalist who is going to basically be documenting Jackie's journey.
He's playing a journalist named Wendell Smith, who he actually looks quite a bit like if you look up the photos.
And Wendell Smith wasn't allowed in the press room because he was Black. Yeah.
And he says later, that's why I always sit behind third base, is because I'm not allowed into the press box.
Yes. And then we run into, I guess he's the manager, the coach.
Elliot Stabler.
Elliot Stabler.
Chris Meloni.
Movie. Yeah, Chris Meloni is in this movie.
Playing Leo Durocher.
It's like a coach.
Let's see. Branch Rickey is the manager. We are not versed on sports ball. We knew these guys were important and immediately forgot their positions.
Well, here's what has me tripping here. Okay, so I do know the manager of the team because I know who Billy Martin is, who is the Yankees manager. But he sat in the dugout.
So I think he's the manager and not the general manager.
Yeah, this is fun. So Stabler's there, and Branch Rickey's like, you will allow Jackie Robinson to be on the team, and he's like, fine. He's like, cool. And we see right away Jackie's just gonna have to put up with just macro and microaggressive racism.
So Wendell Smith is trying to pose reporter questions to Jackie, who's like brushing him off, and then the gaggle of white reporters shows up. This is at the minor league spring training for the Montreal Royals, the Brooklyn Dodgers farm team that Branch Rickey has signed him to. He has his answers, and this is an answer that Jackie Robinson actually gave. One of the reporters asks him, what if someone throws the ball at your head? And he says, I'll duck.
It's fun that the first question he gets asked by journalists is, what are you going to do when another player assaults you within the rules of the game?
I'm sure he'd put thought in on how to answer these things.
It was a great answer. I'm just, the first question he gets asked, though, is like, when another player assaults you, what are you going to do? We
saw a scene earlier of him playing in the Negro Leagues where we see how active the play is there. I saw a commentary on this that there hadn't been as much of like stealing bases.
The showmanship of the game
had gone away for a couple decades or so.
Yeah. We see that, everybody's being shitty, and he's at bat. This pitcher gives him 4 balls, which is when they throw it and it doesn't go in the box. And that means that if you have 4 balls, then you walk. He gets walked to his first base. It's super passive aggressive.
Doesn't that seem like you're doing a nice thing for the person? Like you're letting them get to first?
He's not even going to let him hit, though, is the thing that's shitty about that.
We're really not sports ball people.
You've actually reached the end of my understanding
of sports ball. This movie hones in on the portions of Jackie Robinson's life that we're the most interested in, which are him joining the major league, and it focuses in on his first season with the Dodgers. And if you want an abbreviated guide to the rest of Robinson's life, I guess watch the Ken Burns documentary. We see them in Florida, and some Florida men show up being Florida men. One old guy who says that he had better get out of town, or he's being the nice old racist guy. There's going to be worse ones after him. And then the one decent old white guy in the town shows up to say that they're pulling for him, which you're kind of bracing with dread here.
Because he looks like he's going to be... Yeah. He looks like he's ready to drop an N-word.
There are decent, non-bigoted people in the South. So he gets onto the Montreal Royals.
Which, duh. I mean, why aren't you signing Jackie Robinson? Because he's also amazing at the game.
Yeah, and in real life, there was one other black guy in the training camp who lasted for about a month. But I think the inaccuracies in this movie are mostly inaccuracies of omission. I found things online where people were saying this happened differently in this game or this happened in the other game. And I thought, I have seen ridiculous composite characters. I have seen Georgia blamed for things it didn't do. We've seen total fabrications or people who didn't exist.
Yeah, this is fine. So he makes a comment at one point where he says, I don't think it matters what I believe, it's what I do. That's a great through line of this movie. You do see a lot of people making changes to who they are. And what I liked about the way that they did this throughout this movie is that it's someone taking the action first rather than waiting to be convinced.
You see people change in reaction to their experience, but you do not see Jackie in a way where his point is to help change white people, which is refreshing.
He's not there to help anyone on their journey, but everyone who wants to learn something from watching him take the actions of someone heroic, because they show it a couple times in here. There were days where he didn't feel like being the pioneer because people were shitty to him all the time. At one point here, so he's playing a game and his wife yawns in the crowd, and I immediately turned to Rena and I said, "Oh, she's pregnant."
Which she is. She wouldn't be the first woman to yawn at a baseball game.
No, or first person to yawn at a baseball game. Sometimes that shit's really boring.
It's always boring.
No, I mean, Jackie hits a home run. And then the next thing we know, we go to a nursery where Jackie's wife has given birth to a 6-month-old baby.
This baby looks 6 months old. And every baby in this nursery looks 6 months old. But the nice thing about having a baby that is born 6 months old is that it stays 6 months old for nearly a year. I'm sure it must be a much harder birth, giving birth to a 6-month-old baby instead of a newborn. But the perk is the baby then stays at that particular moment of adorability. And 6 months is a very cute age.
It's a good age.
You get to have a 6-month-old baby for like nearly a year, and they're sleeping through the night at that phase. It's great. So well done, Rachel Robinson.
Yeah, that baby is old. And that baby stays that old through the whole movie.
But it's
so cute,
it's
though.
It's so cute. It has these little rolls. And it's like so... It's the sweetest thing, and they're the most beautiful family.
They're so attractive. He has to leave his wife and his ridiculous baby to go back to spring training. We find out that the rest of the potential Brooklyn Dodger team members are all going to be racists about whether Jackie Robinson can play on the team. And they put together a petition. There's like 5 of them saying they won't play with Jackie Robinson. And
there's one guy who appears to be having a drink and icing his elbow. And I'm thinking, this guy didn't want to admit, hey guys, I'm sorry. I'm not a racist like the rest of you. And he's just pretending his elbow is messed up to get out of signing this petition. What was my note here? Oh, great. More racists. And they call it the Brooklyn Dodger Declaration of Independence. And my note here was, fuck your mother.
So Harrison Ford calls Chris Meloni, who is in bed with a woman who is not his wife,
shirtless.
They have just had sex and they're about to have it again.
Yeah.
When Harrison Ford calls, and there's so much shirtless Chris Meloni in this movie.
Yeah, and
if that's your thing.
They've shaved his hairline back, but it's Chris Meloni, so it comes across as, yeah, I just had too much testosterone to hang on to my hair, which is like, most men cannot pull that off.
No.
So
they say we need someone to be our first baseman. So Jackie starts training for that. So we've got one guy out practicing right now. And then there's a bunch of loser racists back at the hotel complaining about him and passing around the petition. You tell me who the harder worker is.
Yeah.
And Meloni ultimately goes and drags all of the white dudes out of bed. And he's like, you're going to snap out of it or you're not, but you better get used to this. And he says, think about this, boys. He's only the first. And I was like,
yeah. So they are at the spring training in Panama, which is so that they can have them in a place where he won't have to deal with Florida man again. Chris Meloni does not have his girlfriend with him. He is lying asleep in the bed, and he's lying in the bed with the phone on his stomach when Branch Rickey calls him. I love his body language picking up the phone here.
He's shirtless again, by the way.
Yeah.
So there's a guy on the team. Is this Dixie, who says he's going to give the guy who's going to give up his future as a ball player for the Brooklyn Dodgers because he's too racist?
There's a racist named Dixie, and then there's a bunch.
There's so many racists in this movie.
You know, all these white boys look the same to me.
They do all look the same in this, except for Hamish Linklater, and we'll get to him. Put a pin in him.
Oh, yes.
So being like, I'm too racist to play for this baseball team. The KKK is always recruiting, so you can go do that instead.
Do they pay? Or, I mean, I'm sure that must be much more profitable than being on Major League Baseball, because we've all heard go woke, go broke.
Well, also, I mean, you do have to maintain a uniform. Meloni's like, you can stay or you can go, but this is the way it's going to be, which I support.
Back to New York, where, of course, Jackie Robinson can't catch a cab. There's some bad news about Leo DeRoche, the character played by Chris Meloni. He's too sexy for this league, too sexy for this game, too sexy for baseball.
His relationship with this woman who is an actress who left her husband for Chris Meloni, because who wouldn't? Who wouldn't leave their husband for Chris Meloni in whatever guise he is in? He has to be banned from the game for a year.
The commissioner, whose name is, I'm assuming Happy is his nickname, not what his mother named him, is calling Branch Rickey while receiving a manicure to tell him that the Catholic organization of let's not pay attention to our priests while picking on everyone else's morals is upset about Chris Meloni's relationship with this barely divorced actress. They have to ban him from the game for a year, which stinks because now Branch Rickey has to find someone else, and he eventually finds the oldest retired guy around because everyone is turning him down.
Because they're too racist. Anyway, so we go into the locker room, and Jackie, they don't have a locker for him.
They have a rack with 5 really big hooks on it. One of the things we clocked here was that the 2 guys who are nice to Jackie have last names indicating recent immigration status. One ends in Ski, and the other one, his name is Ralph Branca. And you became obsessed with this guy.
Oh my God. So Ralph Branca, he was born in Mount Vernon, but his dad was an Italian trolley operator, and his mother was a Hungarian Jew. They had 17 children.
Of which Ralph Branca was the 15th.
He just fell out. He was still alive when this movie came out. He died at the age of 90. He was a decent ball player. He's been the subject of like some other storytelling. He very famously led up a home run pitch of some kind in a game that became a big deal. The hit heard around the world or something. Seems like a really decent fella though.
Yes, and he's played by
Hamish Linklater,
who we're about to objectify.
Hamish Linklater is pretty dreamy. He's also a very good actor.
Yet, while being dreamy, I looked at him and I thought he could play a young Richard Nixon convincingly.
Which is a really weird thing to say after you say someone is dreamy.
Yeah.
He works a lot, but I still would say he's underrated.
Yeah, he definitely gets a lot of attention in what is not a huge role.
So Jackie enters Brooklyn Dodgers Stadium to play his first game, and he's greeted as a hero for the most part, except for a bunch of racists who I assume are from Howard Beach.
This announcer that you see, who has a very distinctive turn of phrase, is a real guy.
He's played by John C. McGinley. I paused the movie to Google to make sure that this guy wasn't garbage, because I love John C. McGinley and I would have been sad.
His name was Red Barber.
He was the voice of the Brooklyn Dodgers and is an iconic announcer of the sport. And he also coined a ton of phrases, including can of corn, which is when it's an easy shot to catch. He also had one that was the bases are FOB, which is full of Brooklyn, which yeah. I love. Anyway, he has his first game. It's pretty good. We see that Bert is a very old man and has a very different managing style.
Yes, Bert Schotten, the person that Branch Rickey finds to sub for Leo DeRoche that season since he was too sexy for baseball. Then we go to the ballpark where they are playing a game with the Phillies, and oh God, welcome back to the show, Alan Tudyk.
Holy shit. He drops the N-word like 100 times in 3 minutes.
He just says it on repeat.
He's yelling it to upset and throw off Jackie Robinson, and no one's doing anything, which is profoundly upsetting. Like the umps are letting it happen. And
I felt a profound sense of horror and sorrow here because both of my parents are from Philadelphia, and it hurt my heart a little to realize that relatives that I love would have rooted for these guys when they have this guy on the team. So this manager's name was Ben Chapman. It's fairly true to life. I'm not going to dignify him with a quote here. But the overall, what we see happening here as he's just horrible. He's horrible. So in this book, The Court Martial of Jackie Robinson, Branch Rickey is quoted saying, "Chapman did more than anybody to unite the Dodgers. When he poured out that string of unconscionable abuse, he solidified and united 30 men, not one of whom was willing to sit by and see anyone kick around a man who had his hands tied behind his back. Chapman made Jackie a real member of the Dodgers."
At one point, he's yelling out, who did Jackie put out of a job?
He claimed that other white members of the Dodgers had been cuckolded earlier by Robinson, and they looked a bit bow-legged. It's just horrifying.
It's a viscerally agonizing scene. It just keeps going. It's really uncomfortable. And it really, like, I have a note here that I was just like, I hate this so much. This is so much to ask of this man, and it's not fair.
Alan Tudyk does such a good job at being so hateful.
Jackie, to his immense credit, walks off the field, goes into the hallway where the locker room goes to.
He destroys a bat, which seems like it would take quite a lot of work. And Boseman does have like his physicality in this, like he is bulked out for it.
I was saying to you earlier that the loss of Chadwick Boseman is on a level of the loss of John Cazale in terms of just an actor who was taken from us so long before they even had the opportunity to show us how good they were. And they were already showing us so much about how good that they were. The hurt on his face in this scene and the way that he's working to hide it is a really incredible moment for him. And Branch Rickey comes off the field and is talking to him in this hallway, and he says, "These men have to live with themselves," which, I'm sorry, that's not enough.
No, because they don't think that there's anything wrong with themselves. Yeah. They think there's something wrong with being born Black.
Yeah.
So that doesn't really sound like anywhere close to a punishment for them.
No. And finally, another member of the team tells Chapman off. I mean, it's just agonizing.
Yeah.
And he's walking out with his wife, who's devastated. He gives the reality show line of, "I didn't come here to make friends." One of the players had asked to be traded earlier, and he goes to Branch Rickey and he says, "Don't trade me. I want to stay on this team." It's one of those moments where you're like, he's seen what it looks like.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to be that. And I think that's a really powerful moment. There's these moments where you see these players learning acceptance, but it's not cutesy. It's not sentimental. They're like, "Oh, I don't want to be that guy."
Yeah. Like
they're affected by seeing the ugliness of it and turning their backs on it. That other guy is sent to Pittsburgh,
so I'm sorry, which other guy gets sent to Pittsburgh?
The other blonde racist guy.
Oh.
Got that square jaw.
Right.
They all look alike. They really do. And as I said, I get it. I wouldn't want to be sent to Pittsburgh either.
There's like one good museum there. Yeah.
And then they have to go to Philadelphia, and Philadelphia's manager, the actor is named Mark Herlick. And we just saw him in Trumbo a couple weeks ago as one of the stuffy executives who was refusing to release Spartacus. He's also very famous for, what was his name in Election?
I don't know, but he is the teacher who gets fired for having the affair with the teenaged Reese Witherspoon that Matthew Broderick somehow has a vendetta on her for. Yeah.
So disturbing. Anyway, so he's in this movie. He calls up Branch Rickey and he's like, you need to leave your black player back in New York. Philadelphia is not ready for it. Philly's being worse than Staten Island right now. I expect better of you, Philadelphia.
I do too.
They're not ready to see a black person play baseball. And the hotel won't take them because they have a black player. And finally, because the city's getting overrun by this reputation as being incredibly racist, Herb, the GM played by Mark Herlick, is like, we need Alan Tudyk to stop being so racist. And we need to have a moment. We're going to do a picture of the two of them, of Chapman and Jackie Robinson, together, mending fences, showing that it's all just a game. Jackie's finally like, I'll do this, but it has to be in front of everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And they do it on the field. And it's kind of a great moment of the, I don't care what you think, it's about what you do, where he's like, you know what? You want to pretend you're not a racist? I'm going to make everybody look at you while you do. And I love that. And now we go to Pittsburgh, where if you thought Philly was racist.
There's the Act 3 horrible colleague. His name is Fritz Ostermuller, which is the most German name I've ever heard.
He must have escaped that bunker with Hitler, right?
God, who knows?
He throws the ball right at Jackie's head, as those journalists predicted. But his team has his back at this point. They all step up.
It's this great scene where you see, like, Jackie is just kind of like looking up from the dirt and it's like, huh? And you see the legs of all the other players in like pitched fights with each other. It's great. And it's not quite slow-mo. You just have this awareness of like Robinson slowly looking up from the head injury and all this fighting keeps happening around him. This is also where you see a white man who is taking his son to watch this game in Cincinnati, Ohio, where he talks about seeing Honus Wagner back in the day. And then he starts yelling, that, and then the little boy joins in.
This is like an amazing 3-minute short film of seeing a child, like, you see intergenerational racism literally like get passed from father to son.
And we observed, like, all the child actors in this film are adorable, including the correctly aged ones.
Yes. And this little boy has got these big eyes and he's listening to his father say that word. And then he starts yelling it. And
like, yay, I'm going to be like my dad.
Oh, it's so dark. And then, which one is it? Dixie has complained that someone wrote him a mean letter about being a carpetbagger.
And Branch Rickey pulls out the stack of letters that Jackie Robinson receives, which include letters threatening to kill his baby or rape his wife. And there are folders of these letters.
Branch Rickey points out that Jackie is leading the league in hit by pitch. That's how many times someone has thrown a ball at his head.
Jeez.
His teammate who had complained about the letters goes up and he puts his arm around Jackie Robinson on the field. It's a really effective moment because you also see how simple it is to shame racists.
It's like they know that what they're doing is wrong, but they cling to it for identity purposes to feel better about themselves.
Yeah. And it's a really powerful gesture that, again, like, nobody's like necessarily 100% better in this movie, but you see them being like, oh, this is ugly and I don't like it.
You wrote, are you ashamed of yourself?
Tiny child. Because we cut back to that little boy who had learned to be racist from his dad like 2 minutes before. And then he's seeing one of the players who is from that area go up and put his arm around Jackie Robinson. And you see him like, oh, shit, maybe I shouldn't be like that.
So they are in the locker room and Ralph Branca asks Jackie Robinson, why do you always wait to shower until after the rest of us?
He's like, because I'm Chadwick Boseman and I'm too beautiful to share a shower with you all.
I am too beautiful to share the shower with you basic pudding face white boys, except for you, Ralph Branca. You're kind of special. And then Ralph Branca says, take a shower with me, Jackie. And we were like, why is this movie not in Pride Month? And then he realizes how that came out and he starts apologizing and it's adorable.
It's a very sweet moment.
Yes. There's nothing happening here beyond bromance. But then miraculously, Jackie Robinson does get in the shower with all of them.
And then he gets injured in a game, probably because a player did it to him on purpose, and they're working on him, and Branch Rickey comes back to talk to him, and he talks about how he saw a little white boy saying, I want, pretending.
The little white boy is imitating Jackie Robinson's on-field gestures, and it's because the little boy wants to be Jackie Robinson, and just how incredible that is.
Harrison Ford has so many nice moments in this movie, and this is another one of those where it's just like, oh, this could have been an Oscar-worthy performance for Harrison Ford. Like,
why wasn't it?
I don't know.
It's like there's this whole other side to him that we don't see because he's just being a heartthrob and then an aging heartthrob.
And grouchy. He seems very put upon in a lot of his work. Like, why do I have to be here?
He's joyful in this, and he seems like a completely different person, which is what acting is supposed to be.
It's not a Harrison Ford performance.
My level of surprise in finding out, oh, that was Harrison Ford, is equivalent to when I figure out, like, oh, wait, that's Tom Cruise in Tropic Thunder.
So we're almost to the pennant, which is the league championships where they decide who's going to play in the World Series. And it's Pittsburgh again and Fritz again.
I feel like Fritz is some kind of an advance on the Boys from Brazil experiment.
He has,
if you put a mustache on him.
Yeah, he does have like Nazi clone
written all over him.
Energy.
Yeah.
So they're up against him and he throws him a ball that he can hit, and he hits it, and it's a home run.
Before this, there's this very sexy scene of like Rachel, she puts his Dodgers hat on and like kind of like cocks it funny over an eye and starts giving him advice on how to surprise them into giving him a hit that like a throw that he can hit. That's some return on that. Yeah, and we have a fun callback to the guy who got traded to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I'm in Pittsburgh.
Someone involved in this movie must have a problem with Pittsburgh.
It's a nice moment, and it's how they win the game. And Chadwick is so lovely in this. Yeah. He's so happy. And it's such a great moment. And we have like a really nice closing montage where we find out what happens to everyone. Chapman got fired and never went near Major League Baseball again.
Yay! I hope he wound up really homeless.
Well, yeah, or maybe at least learned something. I'm sure he didn't. No one ever learns.
Yeah, nobody is ever punished. We find out when all the people who made the Hall of Fame made the Hall of Fame. And at this point, to note about the real Jackie Robinson, his life goes on for another 25 years after this, but he died at 53 of a heart attack. Jackie Robinson did not, relatively speaking, play that long. His later life has some sadness to it because it was a case where the civil rights movement kind of left him behind in the 60s. And then the really tragic part is that that adorable 6-month-old baby that we saw, Jackie Robinson Jr., went to Vietnam, was traumatized, came home, became a heroin addict, went into recovery, and Jackie Jr. reconciled, but shortly thereafter, Jackie Jr. died in a car crash, and Jackie Robinson himself died a few years later at, as I said, age 53 of a heart attack. And when you look at videos of him around the year he died, he looks 20 or 30 years older than he's supposed to be. He had diabetes, and doctors had said that his circulation was so bad that they might have to amputate his legs, which is a sad note to close on, but life is up and down, and that is one of the flaws of this genre, and one of, like, I'm glad that they hone in on the portion of his life that meant the most to the most people. Did we have awards talk this week?
We didn't, but there was no real awards talk to go over.
Which is a shame. What were we making a fuss over in 2013?
That was the year of 12 Years a Slave, which won three awards. Gravity, Dallas Buyers Club, Frozen came out that year. And also Blue Jasmine won a couple of things. Also Her, The Great Gatsby. That was a pretty competitive year. That said, I'm just going to look and see who was nominated for Best Actor. Winners and nominees.
Oh no, was this McConaughey's year or Jared Leto?
Both.
Oh God. So wait, did both of them win for Dallas Buyers?
Yes.
No. Oh.
But Lupita Nyong'o won for supporting actress. Kate Blanchett won for Blue Jasmine. Alfonso Cuarón won for Best Director and Best Editing. 12 Years a Slave won Best Picture. So yeah, it was a pretty competitive year. And nothing was stopping that Jared Leto train. It was also a tough year for Best Actor. It was American Hustle. It was Nebraska. It was Wolf of Wall Street. But that said, this was a sports movie about the greatest generation. This was a very practical and unsentimental movie. I don't know how else to describe it because it is about a very moving set of events. It managed to buck some of the things that we're used to seeing in sports biopics. It was a really well executed, thoughtfully made movie that was very affecting, but it wasn't corny. It wasn't Pride of the Yankees. It didn't try to make Jackie Robinson look like a passive savior.
No, and it didn't try to make him a saint. Although I did, when he's giving that speech to his 6-month-old newborn, I did, like, knowing how that winds up. It's
heartbreaking.
Yeah. Did you have any dialogue that you singled out?
I've called it out already.
So, for choice dialogue, I had, "He's only the first, boys," and "I don't know, Chapman, what's it like to be a redneck piece of shit?" And "I bet Jackie just wants to play ball," which is what Branch Rickey says when I think it's either Dixie or Pee Wee is saying, "I just want to play ball," and deal with all of this. Sarah, can you please give our listeners a quick refresher about how we score movies?
Sure. We rate movies on a 1 to 10 scale across 10 areas that we find to be subjectively and or objectively important to most films, but specially tailored to specific issues particular to biopics. If you want more details on how we score movies, please scroll down our webpage at biopicapodcaststory.podbean.com. You'll also find a record of our scores for past episodes. And with that out of the way, let's score this thing.
For outward appearances, makeup and hair, I gave it 8.5. They did a great job of transforming Harrison Ford, and there was nothing that really knocked my socks off across the board. Everything looked good and period authentic.
I also gave it an 8.
For acting and casting, I gave it 9.5. We've had a lot of really good things to say. With all of the indistinguishable white boys, it wasn't their job to. I guess that 0.5 is because of my ambivalence around the vocal inauthenticity.
I give it a 9.
Okay, so you were actually nicer than me when I was feeling bad about chopping that down. For passage of time, I gave it a 6. I pretty much knew how much time was passing and when.
Also a 6.
For costuming, I gave it an 8. It looked very good. It looked period authentic. Nothing stunning. I liked the uniforms a lot.
Oh my god, me too, an 8.
For quality of the script, 7.5.
7.
For accuracy, I gave it a 6, which is a way better score than I usually give. It was mostly true, and I think I'm getting gentler with this as time moves by because I'm looking at how terrible these things generally are. I am fine with saying that this was about 60% true where it mattered.
I also gave it a 6. Oh my god.
Oh, mother. Okay. For storytelling, I gave it an 8. It unfolded nicely. It put things within a reasonable amount of time, and it had an arc that moved into a satisfying conclusion.
I gave it a 7.
For production value, I gave it an 8.
For production value, I also gave it an 8. Oh my god.
For production, direction, decision making, I gave it an 8.5.
I gave it a 8.
So we feel pretty good about this movie is what I'm hearing here. And for Do We Care, I gave it an 8.
I gave it a 7.
Yeah, I guess that was a little bit lower because I really just don't care about sportsball.
It's a tough sell for me, but that said, I did very much care about Jackie Robinson. And this movie got me to care as much about baseball as I can ever be compelled to.
It is hard to care about baseball. There are brilliant people out there who care a lot about baseball, and I can enjoy the quality of their writing, but they don't make me care about baseball. I just like storytelling. So my overall came to 7.8.
7.6.
Wow. So, 7.7. Does that feel fair?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree. So, 42. You did not get second opinion. Do we feel okay about that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it was really good, and I'll probably watch it again. And next week we have Straight Outta Compton.
Yes. Anything else that we should watch instead?
I would say watch 42. It's really good, and you will see 2 amazing performances by Chadwick Boseman and Harrison Ford, and a really scary one from Alan Tudyk.
And also really great supporting performances. It's a fun movie. We enjoyed it, and we don't know anything about baseball.
Yeah, we enjoyed it quite a bit. Also, that the Ken Burns documentary on Jackie Robinson, you know, that category that this segment exists if we think something was awful and there's other stuff you should watch instead.
Yeah.
If you want to watch a lovely baseball movie with some wonderful performances, watch 42. And you know what makes me happy? That somehow fate worked out that this is episode 42. 42.
Yay!
The answer to everything, according to Douglas Adams.
Yes.
Hitchhiker's Guide.
I know that. That's the only thing I know about Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
The Pangalactic Gargle Blaster, Zaphod Beeblebrox.
I know about 42.
Marvin, the Paranoid Android.
You're saying all of these things to me and none of them mean anything.
Okay. So with that, Sarah, can you take us out?
Of course I can. If you like the show, please leave us a 5-star rating and subscribe to us on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And tell a friend, or better yet, plural friends, and share us on social media. We hear it helps. You can follow us on Threads, Blue Sky, and Instagram, where we have visual aids from our episodes. Our Instagram handle is @Biopic a Podcast Story. So do check us out there, and we'll link to that in the show notes as well. Please also check out our webpage at biopicapodcaststory.podbean.com to see the official episode ratings for all of the movies that we've done so far. And if you would like to get in touch, you can email us at biopiclistenermailbag@gmail.com.
Tune in next week when we'll be talking about Straight Outta Compton.
Straight Outta Hannah Compton. I'm so excited.
Yes, I remember the first time that we watched this movie in theaters 10 years ago, we were sobbing at the end, holding hands, tears rolling down our faces, still crying when we got to the subway. This movie so got us on our wavelength that now our watermark for the most you can cry at a film, we refer to it as an easy E level of tears.
The movie's really good. Okay, well, we will see y'all soon and have a wonderful night. Good night, Rena.
Good night, Sarah, and good night to the earnest and the cynical. If I don't sound too pretentious, I think
I like it.
I think that's my new goodbye.
Yeah, I like it.
Okay.